Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to make it through 2 chapters today, starting with chapter 7. He told himself that certainly Abilene would come and find him. This, Edward thought, is much like waiting for Abilene to come home from school. I will pretend that I am in the dining room of the house on Egypt Street, waiting for the little hand to move to the 3 and the big hand to land on the 12. If only I had my watch, then I would know for sure. But it doesn't matter. She will be here soon, very soon. Hours passed, and then days and weeks and months. Abilene did not come. Edward, for a lack of anything better to do, began to think. He thought about the stars. He remembered what they looked like from his bedroom window. What made them shine so brightly, he wondered, and were they still shining somewhere, even though he could not see them? Never in my life, he thought, have I been farther away from the stars than I am now. He considered, too, the fate of the beautiful princess who had become a warthog. Why had she become a warthog? Because the ugly witch turned her into one. That's why. And then the rabbit thought about Pellegrina. He felt in some way that he could not explain to himself that she was responsible for what happened to him. It was almost as if she, and not the boys, who had thrown Edward overboard. She was like the witch in the story. No, she was the witch in the story. True, she did not turn him into a warthog, but just the same, she was punishing him, although for what he could not say. On the 297th day of Edward's ordeal, a storm came. Let's think about that. 297 days. How many days are there in a year? Do you guys know? How long has Edward actually been out at sea? As we move through the book, we can kind of keep a little bit of a log, if you want to, write it down, how many days Edward's journey is. The storm was so powerful that it lifted Edward off the ocean floor and led him in a crazy, wild, and spinning dance. The water pummeled him and lifted him up and shoved him back down. Help, thought Edward. The storm in its ferocity actually flung him all the way out of the sea, and the rabbit glimpsed for a moment the light of the angry and bruised sky. What kind of figurative language is that right there? The wind rushed through his ears. It sounded to him like Pellegrina laughing, but before he had time to appreciate being above water, he was tossed back down into the depths. Up and down and back and forth he went until the storm wore itself out, and Edward saw that he was beginning again his slow descent to the ocean floor. Oh, help me, he thought. I can't go back there. Help me. But still, down he went. Down, down, down. And then suddenly, the great wide net of a fisherman reached out and grabbed the rabbit. The net lifted him higher and higher until there was almost unbearable explosion of light, and Edward was back into the world, lying on the deck of a ship, surrounded by fish. What's this? Said a voice. Ain't no fish, said another voice, that's for sure. The light was so bright that it was hard for Edward to see, but finally shapes appeared out of the light, and then faces, and Edward realized he was looking up at 2 men, one young, one old. Looks like some toy, said the grizzled old man. He bent and picked Edward up and held him by his front paws, considering him. A rabbit, I reckon. It's got whiskers and rabbit ears, or the shape of rabbit ears at least. Yeah, sure, a rabbit toy, said the younger man, and he turned away. I'll take it home to Nellie. Let her fix it up and set it to rights. Give it to some child. The old man placed Edward carefully on the crate, positioning him so that he was sitting up and could look out at the sea. Edward appreciated the courtesy of this small gesture, but he was heartily sick of the ocean and would have been satisfied never to set eyes on it again. There you go, said the old man. Again, somebody is talking right to Edward. Isn't that interesting? As they made their way back to shore, Edward felt the sun on his face and the wind blowing through the little bit of fur left on his ears, and something filled his chest. A wonderful feeling. He was glad to be alive. Look at that rabbit, the old man said. Look like it's enjoying the ride, don't it? Yep, said the old young man. In fact, Edward Tulane was so happy to be back among the living that he did not even take umbrage at being referred to as it. Chapter 8. There's the old fisherman. Edward doesn't quite look the same, does he? After how many days under sea? So, Chapter 8. On land, the old fisherman stopped to light a pipe, and then, the pipe clenched between his teeth, he walked home, carrying Edward atop his left shoulder as if he were a conquering hero. The fisherman balanced him there, placing a calloused hand at Edward's back. He talked to him in a soft, low voice as they walked. "You'll like Nellie, you will," said the old man. "She's had her sadness, but she's an all right girl." Edward looked at the small town blanketed in dusk, a jumble of buildings huddled together, the ocean stretching to the front of it all, and he thought he would like anything and anybody that was not at the bottom of the sea. "Hello, Lawrence," called a woman from the front of the shop. "What do you got?" "Fresh catch," said the fisherman. "Fresh rabbit from the sea." He lifted his cap to the lady and kept walking. "There you are now," said the fisherman. He took out his pipe out of his mouth and pointed with the stem of it at a star in the purpling sky. "There's your North Star right there. Don't never have to be lost when you know where that fellow is." Edward considered the brightness of the small star. "Do they all have names?" he wondered. "Listen at me," said the fisherman, "talking to a toy." "Oh, well, here we are then." And with Edward still on his shoulder, the fisherman walked up a stone-lined path and into a little green house. "Look here, Nellie," he said. "I brought you something from the sea." "I don't want nothing from the sea," came a voice. "Aw, now, don't be like that, Nell. Come and see, then." An old woman stepped out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. When she saw Edward, she dropped the apron and clapped her hands together and said, "Oh, Lawrence, you brung me a rabbit." "Direct from the sea," said Lawrence. He took Edward off of his shoulder and stood him up on the floor and held on to his hands and made him take a deep bow in the direction of Nellie. "Oh," said Nellie, "here." She clapped her hands together again, and Lawrence passed Edward to her. Nellie held the rabbit out in front of her and looked him over from tip to toe. "Here you go." She smiled. "Have you ever in your life seen anything so fine?" she said. Edward felt immediately that Nellie was a very discerning woman. "She's beautiful," breathed Nellie. For a moment, Edward was confused. Was there another object of beauty in the room? "What will I call her?" "Susanna," said Lawrence. "Oh, just right," said Nellie. "Susanna." She looked deep into Edward's eyes. "First off, Susanna will need some clothes, won't she?" Oh my, I wonder what Edward is thinking right now. Anybody laughing pretty hard? Poor Edward is now Susanna. Tomorrow, I will be bringing you Chapter 9, and there you can see it looks like Susanna, also known as Edward Tulane, has a beautiful dress on.